it's so true that when you think about it, you're like, you can also like struggle with not putting yourself in a position to like kind of like explore your own uncomfort zone, like, because you're not always going to be comfortable, and so it's a good idea to kind of get out of that. But at the same time, like you have to be like true to yourself, so you can't go and like Lacey wasn't ready to do video, whatever it was 5 years ago. But like now she really does a great job with it, and she really connects with her audience and does all those things, and she likes doing it. And we both like filming it. Whereas that's not where we were then, so it's kind of like, you have to kind of get comfortable with that your journey takes as long as it takes.
That was Dustin Baier, and this is episode number 149 of the Chopped Podcast. Hey everyone, I'm Marley of the blog Namely Marley. I am so glad you've joined me today because I'm your host and this is the Chopped Podcast. This is the podcast designed for people just like you, bloggers who love food. My goal every week is to share with you thoughts, stories, interviews, everything related to food blogging so we can all learn together about what works with food blogging and maybe even a little bit about what doesn't. I just want to say a quick note of thanks to all of you who send me emails directly or through messages on social media. I just can't tell you how much it means to me to hear from you that this podcast is making a difference for you and the work that you're doing. It's really what we're all about here. The thing is, I know food blogging can be so hard. I do it myself. So it can look really easy, right? It looks really easy from the outside. And then you get into the middle of it and you realize there is so much to this. It can be really a downer sometimes. But, my goal here with the podcast is, we talk about the hard stuff and the downside of it. But the goal is just to kind of pick ourselves up and just know that we can do this and be positive and feel that positivity to help us keep going. Today is exactly one of those episodes. It's just one of the reasons I'm so excited to be here doing this work with you, because today I'm sharing with you an interview with Lacey and Dustin Baier. They're of the food blog A Sweet Pea Chef, and their food blog story is so full of twists and turns. It's like a drama. But at one point, they even wondered if they should change the name. Have you ever done that? I know I certainly have. There have been so many times where I think, I know I've got the wrong name and that's what the problem is. So they felt that way for sure. They thought about rebranding. And then, you have this realization that I have all this SEO background that's going on with my blog, and maybe it's worth keeping it around just for that alone. At another point, they actually felt discouraged and they quit. And, that's understandable as well. I have actually talked about on this podcast myself that I've quit for the weekends and things like that. I've known other people that were food bloggers and actually quit and never returned. But fortunately for us and for Lacey and Dustin, that they took a break and they realized they were still making money from the blog, just from the residual traffic and the advertising and things like that. And then somehow their passion was reborn, and now as a result, they're both working full time on their blog and bringing in six figures. That is pretty impressive, don't you think? I mean, how's that for a story with lots of twists and turns and yet still a really happy ending? So I was really thrilled to get to talk with them. I love that Dustin shares regularly about their blogging journey. He talks about this. He has some income reports and just some behind the scenes kinds of posts that he has on the blog. I think it's so informative to kind of see those behind the scenes things that are going on and the things that they've learned and the tips that they share with everybody as a result. So we talk about those struggles of working it all out and how they found the right mixture of, like technology and there's their business stuff. And then there's the artistry, and all of that came together to create their food blog the way it is now. We also talk, of course, about, they're a couple that work together, and, Sean and I are in the same boat. So it's kind of fun to share notes with somebody who also is a couple and working together. There's some different tricks to that. And so we talk about a little bit of that. There's something about seeing successful couples talk about their struggles that help you realize, we all experience the same. I think it's so easy to look at other people and just think like, oh, this just they're just naturally good at this, and this just really just fell into their lap, and things are just so good for them. But, this really is about understanding that we all feel that same way. Even that very successful blog that you may be looking at, you have no idea that that person may be feeling exactly the same way that you're feeling right now. Like they may be thinking, I don't know how I'm going to continue this. I don't know how I can keep this going. So there's always struggles in everything. And this episode is about recognizing those struggles and then picking yourself up by the bootstraps and just, motivating yourself to keep going. And in fact, Dustin even talks about that at the end, how, the advice he would tell himself as a younger blogger would be, just don't give up. Just keep going. You've got this. So I really love this episode, and I think you will too. So let's get straight to it. Here's today's feature interview with Lacey and Dustin Baier of A Sweet Pea Chef. Hey everyone, I'm happy to have Dustin and Lacey Baier. They're of the site A Sweet Pea Chef, and they're on the show today. Hey Dustin and Lacey, welcome to the Chopped Podcast.
Hi, thanks for having us.
I am so glad to have you here today because we're going to talk about like our favorite thing, food blogging.
Yep.
I was wondering, I feel like what I'm really shooting for here is like this conversation, like as if we were sitting at a coffee shop and maybe you're having coffee and I'm having I love hot tea. So I'd be having hot tea and we're just kind of chatting about food blogging. Does that sound good to you all?
Sounds good. I actually have a cup of coffee that I'm drinking anyway. So.
Perfect. I have my hot tea, so we're good. What about you, Dustin?
I'm drinking an energy drink.
Oh, that works. They sell those at coffee shops, so we're good. My very first question I want to ask you is, what caused you to start the site A Sweet Pea Chef?
Oh my goodness. Just forever ago. I guess I'll take that. Dustin, does that sound good? When we first when I was pregnant with our first child back, feels like forever ago.
She's 8 now.
She's 8 now. So I was a child welfare worker and working with a lot of negativity, not in the workplace, but the actual, like the topics that we were dealing with, a lot of drug abuse, a lot of bad stuff. And I had her and realized I don't want to do that anymore. So instead, Dustin, being the entrepreneur type minded person that he is, he suggested that I look into some options for what I could do to work from home and to create my own business. And so we kind of started a personal chef service that where the plan was to go in and, teach or cook for people on a weekly basis. And it didn't require anything but, the knowledge of how to do it and how to cook and some clients.
It was kind of like now how you can buy, the prepackaged meals and the thought process at the time was anyway, she would go into homes and cook 10 lunches or 10 dinners or whatever of like a couple of different types.
Right. And it seemed like a good fit, but we were trying to find out how to get people to be comfortable with me going into their homes and getting to know kind of what types of foods I was going to cook and such. And so Dustin said, hey, why don't you start a blog and share what kind of recipes you like? And I was like, what's a blog? And so the short story, it's a big learning curve for me.
And then I think your response was, wait, you want me to share pictures of food and my kids on there?
Yeah. And I was like, you can't do that online.
Who would read that, right?
Yeah, right. So that's basically how A Sweet Pea Chef was started, because the business was going to be called the Personal Chef Service, which wound up not being nearly as successful as we found the blog to be. Plus, I learned that I loved food photography and sharing recipes and such. So we just called it A Sweet Pea Chef, and 8 years later, that's what it is.
So come on, Lacey, there were all these options in front of you. What caused you to navigate towards food?
That's a good question.
Well, she'd always taken, I learned to cook from my dad, and I was the one who was the cook when we were first dating.
Yeah.
And she didn't like that I made everything from kind of like packages, you'd buy brownies in the box and make them. And she's like, you have to be able to make this from scratch. So she started taking all of my dad's recipes and turning them into something from scratch.
Wow.
Yeah. And I just, I don't know. That's a good question. Why out of all of the work from home business options, I just chose food. I actually wanted to start a cupcake restaurant, which is funny because I don't bake. and I hate baking because I'm not good at it. But I was like, I'm going to make cupcakes or I'm going to do something like that. But it wound up just kind of falling into my lap with just kind of learning about personal chef opportunities, that it was something that you could do that didn't require any education, and it would be flexible with my schedule. It just seemed like a good fit, and I've always loved food, so it seemed like a good opportunity.
I mean,
You sound to be like somebody who's not afraid of a challenge. You kind of inspired by a challenge, maybe.
I have learned to become that person. I was not always that person.
Yeah, and you had already spent a ton of time in school for your other degrees, so you didn't want to go back. Yeah.
Yes. So talking about food, but I have a master's degree in psychology. It works.
There's a lot of psychology to eating. I really believe that.
There is. You're right.
Honestly, I have a degree in business, and I always think that business is one of those degrees that can fit really in any career. And I feel like psychology is the same thing, because you've got to figure out people.
Yeah, you got to figure out people, and there's always some level of communicating with people and reaching your audience, understanding other people's perspectives and all that kind of stuff. So it definitely, it works. And of all the things that I would have done if I weren't ever going to use it as a job, I guess psychology is perfectly helpful.
Exactly. And honestly, I feel like the psychology of being an entrepreneur is just huge. I at least for me personally, I felt like I have become more successful as I've been able to dig deeper into myself and really understand myself.
That's so interesting. Dustin just had a similar experience a couple weeks ago at what was it called, Dustin? A seminar?
It was just like one of those, it was a business conference.
Business conference, yeah. And
where they focused on kind of like how to envision where you want your business to be, essentially, and like how to start acting that way.
And learning how, basically, amongst other entrepreneurs, that we all have our own issues that we come into this with, and we all have to kind of overcome that and learn how to be good at it.
Yes, in spite of ourselves sometimes.
Yes, definitely, probably most of the time.
And you can have like negative thoughts even when you are, what people would look at as like successful of it, and you can look at someone else who you think is successful and they're going through or went through the same exact kind of struggles that you currently are having, but you only see kind of like part of that, so you're like, oh, they don't have those problems that we have, kind of thing. Yep. But it's an interesting dynamic.
I heard somebody say, don't compare your insides to their outsides.
Yes.
That's
probably looking at the outside and thinking that they've got it all together, but they're probably having the same doubts as you.
Yeah, for sure. And then they don't see, half of the failures you've had.
Yeah.
So did you come up with Sweet Pea because is that what you called your first child?
So it was actually a nickname that my dad had for me growing up, and he likes to take credit that he named our blog. But
so sweet.
So he used to call me that, and then it just seemed like a really good fit for Sweet Pea Chef at the time. Currently, we kind of wish we had chosen a different name. All cute and family, memories aside.
Yeah.
Just because it doesn't really depict what our blog does. So, we didn't call it like clean and healthy eating for families or whatever it's supposed to be. Something catchy that people are like, when you tell them what it is, they know what it is.
So you feel like, what would be the name? Like if you could just wave your magic wand, what would you wish you could name it that?
I mean, something like happy and healthy or something along those lines,
wholesome to hungry, or hungry for wholesome was one of the things that
something like that. We considered a few years ago, rebranding and changing all that, but we wound up just rebranding our content and keeping the name, just with all the SEO that we had for the site wasn't worth giving up.
Yes. I've been there too. I felt the same way about my site, namely Marley. It's like, I don't know. It's hard to get contributors when my name's in the site, and it's also like, I don't know. It doesn't really say food and all this stuff. But then after a while, you just have to kind of go, I'm just sticking with this. I'm going with this.
Yeah.
This far along.
Exactly. And there's people that that make it work that have no food in there, like the Pioneer Woman. You don't know what that is, and she's one of the largest ones. So
exactly. So it's really. Sometimes you just have to go with it and just make it work. Yeah.
The one struggle we've had is we've had to rebrand such that we had these shirts that would say like hashtag like A Sweet Pea Chef. Yeah. And we would give them out for free when people would donate, when people would donate like a recipe idea, like they'd say like, oh, hey, we want like a healthy mac and cheese. And if we picked that one, then we would send them a shirt. But if you read this shirt, it looks like it says peach. So
in
the middle of it.
So everyone struggles with pronouncing it. So we're having to get some new shirts that like have a different hashtag that focus on something else. So that way it's easier to like catch and read and understand. And
A sweet, it would look like it would say
yeah,
A Sweet Peach.
peach F.
when the, yeah, and the peach part stands out because people, I mean, the word peach is way more common than,
Yes.
so people are like, why do you have peach in there? And it's like, well, that's not really what you have.
I guess you could capitalize the S and the P and the.
Yeah.
We just need it to become more of a household name. That way people will know.
I like this conversation because I feel like these are the kinds of things like, you know how when you're working on a project and you're all excited about it and then you're like doing all these things and it comes down to the hashtag sometimes that you're just like, I don't know, like spending a lot of time ruminating over it.
Yeah.
Well, and ultimately you just have to move forward and acknowledge that you're going to make a mistake. You're going to make way more than one mistake.
Yeah.
And that all you can do is just kind of keep iterating, right? Like you just keep moving forward and iterating and eventually you'll get there.
That's right. In other words, don't let it hold you back. I had a friend that used to tell me, we worked together on a project and she said, like best next time. And what I got out of that is like, we're working with what we've got here and we'll get better next time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's one of the most common things when people like reach out to us and they're like, why can't I quite get my food blog to, basically be business and doing everything. And it's like, and I'll talk to them and get and it's like, well, really, they're doing a lot of planning, they're doing a lot of talking. They're not getting that next post out and not worrying about the fact that their photos aren't quite perfect or their video right now it's video, right? Their video isn't quite perfect.
Yeah.
How do I make my video better? Well, by doing more video, like that's the main way you're going to get better at it.
Yes. Not by thinking about it.
Not by thinking about it. Yeah.
A little Yoda there, right? There is no try, only do.
Yeah, there is exactly. And like our first video, I think we took 3 months to get it out, and like three or four different attempts, and it's just like and we still hate it. You know what I mean? Like so. So you have to get it out there, and you have to learn from doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the other thing too. That if you like what the product that you got out, that you waited too long.
Yeah.
I mean, look at some of those people on Pinterest some of those photos early on were just terrible, but they got thousands upon thousands of repins.
Yeah, that's
Lacey
one of
hates her versions of those.
I know, gosh, I hate those. I've been going in and trying to redo old ones.
I know, we are too.
The internet doesn't forget though. And one of our videos that was just like the worst coloring. We were tired. It was the end of the day, and it was our last one out of like 12 videos in a day.
Yeah.
And we were just like, oh my gosh, it was so awful. But it was an interesting concept, and it wound up getting millions and how many millions of views?
Over 50 million the last time I checked on Facebook. Yeah. It was like a cauliflower hash browns video, and it just like the lighting could not have been worse. I don't think, like without it being black. You know what I mean? Like it's like we could have shot it at night, I guess.
It's just you just put it out there, and it resonates with certain people.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're just making that number up. You really didn't do 12 videos in a day, did you?
We did. They were all.
It was a bad decision.
We've never done it again. That was the one and only time we've done that. But we had to do 18 videos in a week, and we chose to do them on 2 days. And the first day were the longer ones, and the second day were a bunch of shorter ones. But still, it was insane.
That is a lot. If anybody's done videos, they know. I mean, there's just so much thought and work that has to go into each video.
Yeah, these were only top down. They weren't like the YouTube ones. We couldn't get that many YouTube videos done in a time frame. But these were just like the hands only top down videos, and it was
it was painful.
Right?
Yeah. Well, we had to restructure our environment to allow for 2 days of shooting a week if we needed it, rather than just the one.
Yeah.
So we're not
nowadays
filming
we
as,
only
the sun is setting.
Yeah, and nowadays we only do 2 episodes a day, and that one episode might have multiple recipes in it, but it's not anything like what it was before. And you live and learn.
You were really intrigued by food photography. Can you talk about that and how, what did you take a class, or how did you just fall in love with it?
Yeah, I've always liked photography. It feels kind of like a career that I wish I had gone down. We were talking about, I don't use
Yeah.
my psychology stuff much, or I guess I do, but I don't. And I just always enjoyed that. And I self-taught myself. I guess that's very redundant, but I taught myself how to take photos, and I really struggled in the beginning because it seemed like it should have been easier. So I learned that I,
I mean, you took a class at a community college,
yes,
not on
after a
food
while,
photography, but that was before you started doing the food blogging.
that's true. I'm getting my time frames mixed up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I took that just for photography and just to kind of learn about how to share your voice and your vision in your photos, and tried to apply that to food, but made all the mistakes in the beginning, using flash, didn't have any understanding of natural lighting and plating and such. And then you take these pictures and you think, oh, this is really good. And then you look at it, a
Yeah.
year later and you're like, oh my God, this is awful. It looks just
Yeah.
like horrible.
Yeah, I can remember getting mad at Taste Spotting and Food Jocker and stuff in the beginning of like, why aren't they accepting this?
Yeah.
This is like a perfectly good one. Look at this other one they accepted.
Yes. My photo's better than that one. Yeah.
Yeah. And just over time, I found that the best way for me to learn was always to find someone that I love and kind of just try to mimic what they do, and learn in that way. And then the technical pieces, learn that as well, because you can't get very far if you don't understand how to change your f-stop or your ISO or something like that.
Yeah.
But otherwise, the thing that's always been difficult for me is to have the creative piece, to not just get stuck in a rut of taking the same picture over and over. Because we put out so many photos and so many different recipes that I found that you get kind of stuck with that same style.
Yeah.
Because you want to have that style because that's the one that, emanates what you are, and that's what people come to expect. But at the same time, you want to have it be interesting and fit whatever you're taking at the same time.
So you're saying it's you want to try not to get stuck in a rut. You want to try different things.
Yes.
Yeah, she always kind of falls back on the same, 4 or 5 types of shots, I think, and then she always wants to do something more than that, and then
Which is counterintuitive because I think like we come up with this process for the blog of like, okay, we want these 4 to 5 shots.
Yes.
So it's a weird dynamic.
It's not efficient to kind of let your creative side explore itself, but then you have to have a space for that too.
Yeah.
It's so true. I think that's the hard part about food blogging. It seems like it is a perfect blend between both technical and artistic.
It is, yeah. It's a good way
It's
to
not always
look at it.
easy to let yourself play between those two worlds, I think, too.
Yeah, and it's always interesting to see people who have never done anything technical, but very much are artistic, have to learn and struggle through that and learn how to set up a blog and create all of their different things that, it's way puts them outside of their comfort zone.
Yep, absolutely. So I read on your site that you were about ready to give up, and then you came back and you pivoted. And I'm just so curious about that. What happened to make you almost want to quit, and what was your pivot?
Which time?
Yeah, I mean the biggest
Like yesterday?
No, we're not there anymore. We definitely were there for a while, but I'll let you answer that one, Dustin.
I mean, the closest I think we came to quitting was I was trying to get Lacey to do video, and this was way back. We had our second daughter, and so we'd been doing it for, I want to say, like 2 to 3 years, and we released an e-cookbook that we thought was going to make a bunch of money, and it didn't really, and we had to pay the person who helped us make the book more than we made in it. And we were getting pretty good traffic. I mean, now we're significantly larger, but back then I think it was like, I want to say like 60,000 page views a month, which we thought was pretty good and enough to make us think like, hey, this could do something. But then when we tried to monetize it, it just would never work. And then I was having Lacey do the videos, and they were horrible, and we were fighting all the time about it. And I had to work far away, so I would like drive an hour, to commute and then come back, and then it was just like, she turns to me one of the days and it's just like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'd rather have a job. This isn't fun,
Yeah.
And And
We were
so she
just
did.
spreading ourselves way too thin.
And so for a year or two, she went and did something else, like didn't go back. I guess you kind of went back in the same field for a little bit.
I went back into child welfare. Yeah, I
Yeah.
did that social work for a little bit, and then realized, you know what, I have a lot of other skills that can be used as a project manager. So got into project management with the tech field.
Yeah.
I
So,
see.
And then we actually had
the blog was still up.
the blog was still up. Yeah.
But you
Uh,
just weren't doing anything with
we
it.
just weren't really, I mean, just not often. Like maybe like on a weekend we might post
Yep.
a recipe, but like, really not very often, really didn't keep much of it going, had a little bit of revenue coming in from everything that was kind of already set up.
Yeah.
And I want to say at that point, I think it was making like $300 to $500 a month. And
Not
so
bad. Nice
it
hobby.
was a
Yeah.
nice, yeah. And whenever you would tell that story to someone, people would be like, wait, you have this thing that's just there that you do nothing for that makes, $500 a month. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And from us, we had kind of always looked at it as like being defeated. Like, it didn't replace either of our incomes. It didn't allow either of us to do our own thing. And
we
then,
should have had a much better outlook on it at that time.
yeah. And when we quit that time, there was no, at least we weren't aware of anyone out there that was like saying like, hey, look, you can do this for a living, right? Like the only person we knew who did it for a living was the Pioneer Woman. And it was
Right.
like, well, and she was just giant. So,
Yeah.
and then at some point, right around the time our son was born, our third kid, basically we got an email, like a hate email from someone who said, look at how awesome Pinch of Yum is. Your site sucks.
Oh
yeah,
my
look
God.
at all these ads you have everywhere.
Yeah.
This is awful. I'm never coming back. And we're like,
so-
who just sends an email?
Yeah, we were
What's
like,
Pinch of Yum?
but we spun it around because like that actually allowed us to go look at their income reports and be like, well, if they can do this on that traffic, I just calculated out like what percentage of their traffic we were, and was like, well, we should be able to make $1,500 to $2,000 a month then, just with what we have right now. And then so then Lacey and I are like brainstorming, and our son got sick, and so we were in the hospital
When he was 2 weeks old.
when he was 2 weeks old with this with this person hating on us, and we were like, you know what, let's turn this around. And Lacey, we were like, you're not going to go back to work. Instead, you'll stay home with him.
I was on maternity leave at the time.
Yeah, you'll stay home with him, and we'll implement all of these things that, to improve the site, to get it to where our original goal was just, if we could have it make, $30,000 to $40,000 a year, then Lacey didn't have to work, you know?
Right.
And so that was like, and it seemed really viable after like, kind of like, reverse engineering everything that Pinch of Yum had done at the time.
It was also really neat because Dustin and I have always enjoyed working together, and it seemed like we were just like super odd ducks that didn't work well with food blogging. And so to see that Pinch of Yum was able to do that, and to see that Pinch of Yum was able to do that, and basically we're doing the same thing as us at that time, but didn't give up. And that was like basically a kick in the butt to, okay, we need to not give up. We need to just do this and realize that, you can make anything work.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I was going to ask you that. How is that working together? Like, my husband and I work together, and for some people, I think they think that sounds like not a great idea, but
I think that's
so
like
you like working together.
Yeah, exactly.
We love it. Yeah.
I always feel sad when people are like, oh God, I would kill my husband if I had to work with him all day. I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
But we have a good working relationship. It really helps us like both out that we're both working on the blog and furthering everything. It's awesome because A Sweet Pea Chef is now able to allow for both of us to be working on it full time. So it's been really cool, and we support each other, and it's been really interesting to go from working for other people to working by myself on this, and now to have him, and just all the different dynamics that have changed over the years. But it's good.
Well, so I would say my challenge with, I was doing this mostly on my own, and Sean was just doing the website part of it. And then the challenge, I think, for me and pulling him in, and we're doing more work together, like we do the food photography together and all that stuff, is for me to be able to say to him what I want. And sometimes what I want is different than what he does. And so that's been a challenge at times. But once I've learned that, we work just great together.
Yeah, it's the wanting and what you get are definitely
yeah.
I mean, that's true with anybody that you have working with you. That's one of the things, like we realized that we hired a VA and he was amazing. And so we thought, oh, hiring people is easy. So then we hired somebody else to fill something else for like a kind of like a more artistic side of things. And we've been through like 4 different contractors for that position because it's like a lot harder than we thought originally. You know what I mean? Like, you're like, oh, you don't always get what you asked for, or maybe you asked for it poorly, like maybe you give horrible directions.
Speaking of, that's something that we've learned that I'm not very strong at, is asking for something and how to word something I'm looking for. And I might not even know 100% what I want when I'm asking for it until I see it. And Dustin's so much more the opposite of, you need to give me rules and give me exactly what I'm looking for. And so our communication styles have to jive, and we've been trying to figure out the best way. Fortunately, we don't usually fight about it, but, we try to figure out the best way to go about each of us getting what we need.
Well, it's so funny that you say compare the 2 working styles, because like for me, I would take 1,000 pictures or at least 100, and Sean is more like he wants to think it out, and then we maybe take 5 photos.
Yeah.
And that waiting, just like I have no patience, so I'm just like, just shoot it, just hit the snap, just like let's just take the picture, let's move on. And I've had to learn to just like have patience, and sometimes he has really good ideas on the photography, and so I've learned from him on that too. So it's cool.
Yeah, it's definitely been helpful in that regard with Dustin. Like, while he does need rules and things that are a little bit more difficult for me to lay hard and fast, this is this, he'll come in and he'll take a process that I'm doing that's taking me a while and be like, okay, well, how do we maximize your time here? And he'll cut something in like 1/5 of what the time was, and I'll be like, oh my God, this is amazing, and I never have to worry about it again. So it definitely has value for me to learn his style.
Okay, so I'm hearing like hire people when you need it, but also work to improve your processes so you don't spend as much time on certain things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like one of the things, especially early on when Lacey was by herself, is she would just do everything and say like she couldn't give this to somebody else. She'd always say, I can't. And I would be like, well, if you want to get it to this next point, you have to work on the stuff that generates, either revenue or engagement with the audience, or, like these core kind of 3 or 4 things that are really the things she has to do. And the other, 20 things she doesn't have to do. She just has to figure out how she either trains or outsources it, or just in some cases stop doing it completely because it isn't helping anything other than making you stress.
Yeah.
And so, but there's a give and take with that too. Like, we outsourced some stuff too fast, and so we had to bring it back in, and then kind of slowly, drip it back, push it back out. You kind of have to find your rhythm with that, and how you get comfortable with it, and maybe even like the thing I helped Lacey with was like articulate the pieces that she was worried about, right? So that like when how do you have someone else maybe do the video part, whether it's editing or whether it's even filming it, so that you don't have to be there for that part, or how do we change this other thing so that it's all done in one take rather than done over the course of 3 days or whatever, right?
Yeah,
right. I could see where that'd be an example of where you could outsource it too quickly, and then what you get back doesn't look at all what like you would hoped for it to look like. That's kind of painful.
Yeah,
it's funny. The video part was easier to outsource. It was really the creative design stuff for us. Like if we wanted an infographic made to go with something, or we wanted like a new banner for YouTube or something like that, we used to have my brother used to do a lot of the creative stuff for us, and then he left to go do something else, and so we've been trying to replace that piece. And I didn't think it would be that complicated, but it's been like you'll go through 70 revisions of something and still not like it, and it doesn't feel like they're really hearing what you're asking for.
Yes.
And I don't know, like but then I also know that sometimes one cannot describe it well enough,
Yes.
so it's kind of a weird balance.
Yeah. There's some truth to that for sure. Do you use certain services or do you just go by word of mouth typically when you're looking for somebody?
It Upwork has been where we've been lately
Yep, we
with
use that
that
too.
stuff.
Yeah.
We've been thinking about using something called, I think it was called Design Pickle.
Yes, I've heard that.
Um, where basically it's like a monthly service where you actually get someone that the company finds for you based off of kind of like your requirements and what you're looking for and their design expertise,
Yeah.
which that's the route we're going to go next when we need our next batch of stuff done, because I think we need to have someone who's better at probably like the project management side of design help us find
Yeah.
somebody,
Yeah,
right?
that piece is just it needs to become part of the team at this point rather than, one-offs.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I guess the other thing that gets tricky about that just hearing you talk about it makes me think about because, um, like my husband's a graphic designer, so if I need a graphic, I just go, "Hey, go make this for me."
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what we used to do with Sean. His
Yes,
brother's name is Sean.
that's so sweet. But what about, I mean, do you have to be planning ahead? What I hate is when I do that and I need it today, and I
Yeah.
would rather be working far out in advance. And are you doing that?
So I do most of the planning of
Okay.
that kind of stuff. Like I try to basically what we do is we're not always great about it, but we'll try to have like a brainstorming session, let's say like once a month or once a quarter, where we put everything up on a board that we're interested in doing, and then we kind of move things around. And
Nice.
we've trying to become more diligent about making sure we do that every time, because when we have the biggest kind of problems with the business is when we fall behind on that planning part. And then from there, then we can kind of make sure that we're going the right places. That like either Lacey has it on her calendar to make sure she does it when the time frame is, or I go and find someone in Upwork, or give, make sure the right person is doing the right task or responding to them. Um, but it definitely becomes more like you become more of like a business manager
Yeah.
as you start outsourcing stuff, and that's kind of like a core component to growth at that point. But I feel like I wish we had done more of the kind of the outsourcing stuff earlier, because I feel like that would have gotten Lacey off some of the other
Yes.
tasks that she was doing all of the time, and
Yep.
that really inhibited her growth. Like if she's making a recipe, or if she's engaging with the audience, or she's working on some sort of product, like those
Yep.
three things are the things that really grow our business. Like being in there creating some sort of PDF from something that she's already done the hard work for isn't something she should be doing.
I totally agree. In fact, I've been reading this book called The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks.
Mhm.
And he has another book that I really love, which is called Conscious Loving. And Sean and I read that together. It's couples and things like that. So I knew this was going to be a good book. And he actually talks about these different zones that you have. And one of them is called the zone of competence. And his point is other people can do this just as well, but you end up doing it yourself. And I feel like sometimes for me, that feels like accomplishment. I can cross something off my list and it's done.
Yeah.
And I can
Yeah.
get addicted to that feeling.
Well, and I think also the weird dynamic with our blog, it sounds like it might be similar, but is
Yeah.
that I'm the face of everything, so
Yeah.
Dustin is behind the scenes on everything. So being the face of it and being the voice of the message and the food recipes that are being put out there and all of that, I feel like I have to have my touch on everything, and so to make sure that. Wait, no, I need to do this piece because this is me. I'm saying this is me, and
Yep.
so that's been a difficult piece that, you don't want to give up, but at the same time, there is such a burden with that.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's
So
like she used to want to have to be the one who like scheduled everything in like Facebook or Instagram or anywhere, and Pinterest. But Lacey doesn't really like Pinterest all that much. She's not on it all the time, but it's important for a brand to have a presence there.
Yep.
So it's like things like that where you can be like, well, your face isn't really the thing that's on Pinterest. Like as long as it's
Yeah.
meeting these rules that you set up for
Yes.
like what recipes can and can't be shared, then that's really what matters, right? Like
Right. Well,
it doesn't matter as much that your face is there. Whereas like Instagram is like it's more about as it really is Lacey. So
and
like
so I own
like
everything that goes
and
out
she owns
there.
everything that goes on Instagram. So that's like the compromise that we made on it was like, okay, well, if we can outsource the Pinterest part, then she doesn't have to worry about that, and it's still getting done. You know what I
And
mean?
the other piece was, I wasn't doing it. So it's like, well, it's not getting done. So the opposite is only going to be better.
Right, exactly. Something is better than nothing.
Yeah.
And I think that is a really great example of outsourcing versus finding ways to be more efficient. So, for example, I have a VA that helps me with Pinterest and Facebook. And then on Instagram, I started using this app called, I'm sure you probably use it too or something. I use Later. And I feel like it just makes Instagram so much easier.
Yeah, because I mean, you have to be there to post it live nonetheless. So we use Buffer, so you might as well use something to make everything easier. So you just copy it and paste, and you put your time into it, so that way when your alarm goes off and it says, "Oh, hey, you have something to share," it's easy to do.
Right, but you're maybe spending one day a month where you're kind of planning it all out, and then from that point forward, it's just like posting it at the moment. Yeah.
I wish I was only spending one day a month my life together like that.
Maybe 1 day a week.
I do it more frequently. But even doing it the night before and having it ready to go that next day has been really helpful.
It feels really good. So you talked about this pivot that happened when you almost quit, or maybe it sounds like you kind of did quit for a little bit, and then you pivoted. I'm just curious, from that moment of pivot, we'll have to create a new term. That's a moment of pivot, a MOP. From your moment of pivot, was it a straight line of success after that? I mean, things just, rainbows came and unicorns were there.
It started growing, I would say. So like when we had the conversation when Hunter was in the hospital and we decided we were going to commit to it, we decided that the things we were going to do is we were going to do video for sure.
Okay.
And then that's kind of when my brother got involved and we had some help with the video piece of it to get started. But then we also hired a business coach. And so for like the next year, we basically, we lost significant money, because like a business coach is expensive, so, but we saw growth right away from that point, really. We started, basically like Lacey was blog posting regularly. We tried to add the video component in. And then I want to say, Lacey, would you say it was about like 8 months into that when we decided to focus completely on clean eating?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, when we decided to make that change into the clean eating piece, so we had like a mini pivot after the pivot of coming back to the blog.
Yes.
So changing the content that we were sharing, I think at that point it really started to pick up because Dustin and I became a lot more passionate about the content that we were sharing. We became happier about, this is our lifestyle and we get to share the things that we're actually eating, because we were making foods that were, at the time we were trying to, get in shape, start weightlifting, eating clean foods and all of that. But meanwhile, our audience was expecting things like cinnamon rolls and things that were made from scratch, but not necessarily that good for you.
Yeah.
And
so we made cinnamon rolls 3 times in a week.
Because we have to test it and all that. And so we had this disconnect with the blog. And so we basically decided to poll our audience and say, hey, are you guys interested in this? And this is the time we were trying to decide whether or not we were going to completely start from scratch and create a new blog, or if we could pivot A Sweet Pea Chef into being, fully, more healthy-based foods.
Yeah.
And we were just astounded by the number of people on our email list and social media that were just like, yes, please, I would love that. So we kept A Sweet Pea Chef, and it's been growing, and everybody's been so happy with the change, and it's been doing really well from there. And at that point as well, video really helped us propel on our social sites.
Especially like on Instagram, because it seems like there's a lot of people who wanted to eat healthy that were already on Instagram. And so, we went from, I don't know, like 200 people to, 120,000 or something in like a year.
And we found this audience that had been not eating very well, that wanted to learn how to eat healthy and still enjoy the food they love. So that's basically what we pivoted to. And it was like this perfect match that really gelled with everything.
I kind of think it's a testimony to authenticity and following your passion too.
Absolutely. And it felt really good at the time. I mean, it still does. It felt really good to be genuine with all of that.
But it's interesting because it's hard because it wasn't like we weren't genuine in the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
It's some, like, sometimes you just have these phases in your life, right?
Yeah.
And you don't realize
Oh,
that you're
yeah.
doing the same thing.
Oh, right.
You know what I mean? Like, you're doing the same thing and you don't like it, and all of a sudden
Yeah.
you're like, wait a minute, why do I keep doing this if every time I hate it? You know, like,
But
Yes.
then you have this brand that you've created that, people expect certain things at the same time. So,
Yeah.
we were so worried about making them unhappy that we weren't even making them happy.
and we're making ourselves unhappy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like I really feel like I've been curious about the path to authenticity myself. Like I wonder what that means, and I have realized just for myself that it really is just a series of questions. I just have to keep asking myself over and over, is this for me? And so sometimes I think it is, and then I realized, okay, yeah, I really don't like that.
Yeah. It's all a process of self-exploration, and we learn new things all the time, so.
Yeah. You'll really like this, Dustin. I really believe that actually entrepreneurism is a modern day voyage of self-discovery.
Yeah, it's so true that when you think about it, you're like, you can also like struggle with not putting yourself in a position to like kind of like explore your own uncomfort zone, like,
Yes.
because you're not always going to be comfortable, and so it's a good idea to kind of get out of that, but at the same time, like, you have to be like true to yourself, so you can't go and like Lacey wasn't ready to do video, whatever it was 5 years ago. But like now she really does a great job with it, and she really connects with her audience and does all those things, and she likes doing it. And we both like filming it. Whereas that's not where we were then, so it's kind of like, you have to kind of get comfortable with that your journey takes as long as it takes to some degree, right? Like,
Yes.
and you kind of always have to like experiment and try new things.
Right. How would you know otherwise whether
Yeah.
it's something you're going to enjoy or not?
Yeah.
Yeah, I really love that. And so I'm just curious, at what point after the pivot then did it, did you realize, okay, this is going to be our business? I mean, obviously, Lacey, you were there, you were committed to it.
Yeah.
But now, Dustin, you're working full time on the blog as well?
Yeah. I mean, I used to, do software engineering in kind of the startup field, and I always liked it. And especially I had a really good boss and CEO and stuff that I really liked working with. So I never really anticipated kind of like completely giving it up until, stuff at work changes, CEOs like, take different jobs, or your boss leaves or whatever.
Mergers,
and then and mergers happen, or, and so then it kind of started to kind of become apparent that like at some point there would wind up being a window where that would make sense. And, that kind of just all happened a year ago or whatever. And it just seemed like the right time to do it. And we had
And
enough.
are you glad?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely miss working like
Yeah.
with people at times, like I like that component.
Yeah, me too.
It's something we
and-
both miss, that we think about, adding on a team at some point.
Yep. I
Yeah.
agree.
It just, I like having this creative kind of outlet to talk to
Yes.
people and plan, and like, that energy that comes from
Yeah.
like a small group of people, solving an unaccomplishable task, like,
And then you break it. Sometimes I find myself just like saying it out loud, the problem that I'm trying to figure out. The solution just presents itself, but as long as it's stuck in my head, it's not going to get solved.
Yeah, and the benefit, there's a lot of people that do food blogging just by themselves, and even for Dustin and me, we become hermits, and we become so stuck in what we're doing, and then don't have a lot of outlets. And then if we're not working on our business, then we're dealing with our kids and taking them to soccer and doing all of that. So our social hour is with the parents at soccer and all of that.
Yes.
So there's definitely a value to having a place where people who are like-minded are, at work and being creative.
I love that. Okay,
Yeah,
so
when
go ahead, Dustin.
I was gonna say, I have this vision of creating like a co-working spot for food bloggers, where
I love it.
where there's like a kitchen that people can film in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because we've gone to co-working places and we love it
Yes.
for like 2 months, and then all of a sudden we have to do a bunch of video, and then we're never able to go. Because
Yes.
there's no kitchen to film in. There's no setup to take photos. Like.
Yeah.
And you would be like looked at. They always treat you when you go to those types of places, they're all so stuck in, software and technology, and they're like, oh my gosh, you do food? It's like you're completely different.
Yes, like a freak or something.
Yep.
Where are you all located at?
We're in
We're in
Austin.
Austin. Yeah.
Oh, that's a little too far for me to drive to your co-working place.
Where are you?
I'm in Kansas City.
Oh, right.
I think it's like a 10-hour drive. It's 8 hours to Dallas, and I think
Yeah.
you're a couple hours away from there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's quite a drive, but it would be fun to try.
We almost drove up there one time to pick up a smoker that I wanted to buy.
Really?
Yeah, they custom make them out of that location, and totally needed another one. I didn't really, but it was like a good excuse.
Yeah, it's a great drive. I mean, it's super easy. We have family in Plano, Texas, so
Okay.
we go there fairly regularly. It's a great drive. But anyway, yes, I love the idea of a co-working, workshop or anything that's like that is a great idea. I think we can learn so much. And the other thing I think is like, when you're working in an office, some people they'll show you how to do things, and you miss out on that. I think sometimes when you're not in that situation.
And it also reminds you how much you know that you can share as well. That there's so many, we've been doing this for so long. There's so many things we've encountered and figured out that some people haven't figured out yet. And you don't even realize that, you're having issues with that. Here, this software helps with that, or whatever.
Yeah. I think those little tips and tricks, and just like looking over someone's shoulder. I mean, remember way back, Kristen Doyle with the site Dine and Dish. She lives here in Kansas City as well, and she was just showing me some tips on Instagram. I didn't even know anything on Instagram. It was just so cool. It just made a huge difference for me. Yeah. So I just think those kinds of things are really helpful.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so imagine yourself as you are right now, and imagine that you could go back 8 years ago to when you first started your blog. I'm just curious, knowing what you know now, what would be one thing you would tell yourself to do differently then?
I would just say don't quit. Don't, like you will make it eventually if you don't quit.
Yes.
Yeah, I would tell myself to focus and don't go in too many directions. Become, good at one thing and just keep going at that rather than trying to be good at everything.
Yeah, that's it's very tempting. I know that I've been reading a lot about my egos. I play tennis a lot, so I've been reading this book, The Inner Game of Tennis, and they talk about how you can play good in a match, but you play good, let's say, when you're practicing, and then you get out in the match and you suck.
Yeah.
So it feels a lot like what you're talking about. Yes, that you have to let yourself be a master in a certain area and just relax and know that you've got that covered before you can move on to something else.
Yeah, I mean, there was a time that, it was the same time right around when I said I don't want to do this anymore, that it wasn't just video. It was also Dustin wanted to start a podcast, and then I think
we were
Periscope was coming out, and all these different things were coming out, and I was like, I can't even take care and do what I'm doing here well, and I'm just trying to do everything. It can become daunting, and so choosing on just one or two things that are going to be your thing that you're going to learn how to do, and then you can focus on that stuff later is a way better way to do it, I think.
One other thing I wanted to ask you along that vein, I noticed that you have a couple of series that are on your site that I think are really cool, which is like the how-to series, and I noticed that you've got some meal plans. Have those been really successful for you as far as connecting with your audience?
Yeah, definitely we've learned that there's a lot of people that would love to eat homemade foods, but they just really don't know the basics of cooking.
Yes.
And so we've tried to help out with that. That was one we did a while ago, and more recently we've kind of turned that more into how to live a healthier lifestyle. So we kind of teach how to eat healthy at restaurants, how to remove sugar from your food and still like it. And turning it into that. And then the meal planning has been helpful. We actually have a product called No Fail Meals, where we provide, weekly meal plans to people. And that's something that, we were talking about focusing on, but we wanted to make sure that we gave video and the blog, the time that it deserved, but we want to also build out that program as well. Right now, we have a monthly membership, and we've been talking about how can we build on that and make it just this really awesome, memberships that can be super valuable.
Like right now it gives the meal plans, but we'd like it to be able to be like customizable so that people who have different diets or different
Yes.
tastes can change it, but at the same time also have like instructional like videos and course material in there from Lacey, because like one of the things that people really seem to struggle with is like and part of that, it kind of ties into that how-to series too. It's like what is coconut oil? Why should I use it?
Yeah.
You know, like what is this other type of flour, or what is these ingredients that aren't processed, you know, or aren't as processed depending on what the ingredient is, and how does that help me?
And we've found with the meal planning that combining that with, you know, taking back your health and trying to become, you know, immerse yourself into this world of healthy, unrefined foods, that it's really best done with support and in a group, and and meal planning is such a big part of it. So we kind of have chunked that out to like a 30-day program that we're actually running right now called 30 Day Healthy, where we walk everybody through and we have every meal planned out for them. And that has become, you know, people love that program. Yeah. So we want to take that concept and apply it to just, you know, full-time meal planning.
Yeah. That's great. So when you were at that pivot point, I imagine you had to kind of pick a monetization strategy. I obviously, you know, I always look at it as ads, there's sponsored posts, creating your own products and membership. Is that membership sounds like one of the directions you headed in?
Yeah, so what we basically kind of we broke it down into like ads were a certain percentage,
yes,
products, and in the product one we had like kind of like one-off entry-level products as well as like membership, and then the sponsored post stuff, and then we also do some contract work for making food videos for like other companies.
Interesting. That's altogether it completes a a nice pie chart.
Yeah, and so our ad revenue and our contract work generate most of our revenue. And then we've been trying to work on finding good partners for the sponsorship part that really fit the brand. Because one of the problems we've had is we get a lot of people reach out to us and it's like, oh, you know, we want to, you know, take advantage of your audience and your traffic, and you know, we'll pay you X, but it's like this thing does not fit. Like, you know, you know, like it could be somebody selling like a cake, you know, or something, and you're like, well, we don't really want to promote, you know, cakes here, you know, right. Like, but you know what I mean? At least not super refined sugar cakes. And so it's like, you know, we have things like that don't fit. So we have to turn those down quite often. So it's been a little bit more work than I think than other food blogs might have, as far as like finding the right partnerships that kind of like generate that revenue and align well with the brand. And then the product piece is the piece that we're really trying to hone in on this year and fix and kind of like basically we want to create like a really cool community where everybody is focused on eating healthier and supporting each other, and nice. And then there's tools that they have access to, and that's like kind of what they're paying for, is to have access to those tools, access to those recipes, be able to pick which things they want or not, or don't want, or which ones they like and want to have again, and those kinds of things, and have it be a lot more like sticky that way from a community perspective.
That's cool. I was kind of wondering if that membership, you know, like on a sponsorship side, I experience some of those same problems too, because our site is vegan. And as I was wondering, you know, like sometimes you have this perfect brand that you would love to work with, but they don't really work with bloggers, or maybe they've already got other people they're working with. I have no idea. But one idea, so it's like sometimes you hesitate to mention them because, you know, you don't want to, I don't know how to say this without sounding really, you know, petty here, but you know, do you want us to mention a brand and it's not a sponsored post, but if you had a membership site, it seems like that's a perfect area. Then you could go ahead and talk about the brands that you work with.
That's true. Yeah. And we mention ones like, well, I'll say in videos that like, if someone does something that's so incredible, and even if they're not paying me, I'll share like, you got to try this one. This is the best one I found.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
You have to view it as solving the audience's problem, right?
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Instagram stories, I think, is a great way to do that as well. Like I'll just share me using like some pasta that's made out of spinach and lentils that, you know, they're not paying me to do anything, but it's just like, hey, you guys, this is amazing. If you don't want to use like have super high or high refined sugar or
carbohydrates,
thank you, empty carb pasta, then, you know, this is a really great opportunity to use this, and it tastes amazing and all that. So
I love that. That's a great tip. Love that. Okay, so I've really enjoyed talking with you. I love to ask these fun questions at the end of the interview. Are you all game for that?
We'll
Sure.
see.
Okay. Let's start with you, Dustin. What's one food item you can't live without?
Oh, chicken. I mean, chicken is in everything
You
for
say
me.
this to the vegan blogger.
Yeah.
I know.
I mean,
Well, I was wondering if
I'm
you was
being
something
I'm
like
being
that.
real. Like I don't like I eat a lot of protein, and so I try to keep it lean.
Yes.
And for me anyway, I eat a lot of that.
I call myself a secular vegan. I'm not dogmatic about it, and I respect people and their ability to make their own choices about their own food. So that's
That's
cool.
We appreciate that.
Yeah.
We feel the same way.
So is that how you use your smoker? Is that you're cooking in your smoker?
Yeah. We usually do ribs or brisket, but and sometimes pork. But I haven't been able to do chicken successfully yet. It always, for me anyway, tastes too
Doesn't turn out
smoky.
right.
Yeah, it doesn't turn out the way I'm looking for. Yeah.
How about you, Lacey? What's your favorite food?
I was been trying to, my favorite food that I can't deal without, I would have to say, I think, which is weird because I would have never thought this, but I'd have to say it's another one that's not good, that is not vegan, is Greek yogurt. That I
Okay.
just use it for so many different ways, like for
Yes.
sweets, for adding to a sauce or anything, and
Yeah.
for a snack. So I think that's probably the thing I use the most.
That's a good
I
answer.
can relate with you because they've come out with vegan yogurt now,
Yeah.
and one of them I love the most is one that doesn't have sugar in it, and I can use it in anything. It's so wonderful.
That's cool. I'm always trying to find. I mean, you can use soaked cashews and stuff to get a similar texture and such, as
Yeah.
you probably know. But there's something about that if
Yes.
you are someone who eats yogurt and you can have it, that it's a really helpful ingredient.
And you practically died the last two times Lacey was pregnant. She kind of had to be dairy free.
Yes.
Because she just started having a bunch of,
Reactions.
reactions, and so like she almost died by not being able to have Greek yogurt. It was just like she's like, what do I
in
do with
everything.
it? Yeah, I put
Yeah.
this in literally everything.
Yeah.
Well, just so you know, Silk makes a really nice plain dairy-free yogurt if you have another baby. But
We have
We're-
4. I think
We're at 4 now, I think.
I'm just happy the one I'm holding has been sleeping this whole time.
I can't believe it. Behaving very well.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so let's start with you, Lacey. What's the favorite app on your phone?
It's got to be Instagram. I'm on
I
it
thought you were going to say
constantly.
that. Yes. So you're on there a lot?
I'm on there a lot, like not only sharing my own stuff, replying to comments, but also watching stories, getting inspiration from people that are just so creative, and I just love it's my way of learning that and growing that creative side. So,
Is there a favorite Instagram story person we need to follow?
I mean, Chunga with Damn Delicious is great. I love reading, her stuff.
Yes.
But she's probably the one that most food bloggers would be interested in following.
That's good. Okay, Dustin, what about you? What's your favorite app?
I use like Slack a ton, which
That's
is
true. We do use
just like a chatting software that we basically use it to kind of run the business, and so that when she's in the other room, we can talk back and forth, and whenever we
Nice.
have other team members, you can stick them on specific channels. So like if someone just works on the video stuff, you can make a channel and they get the video stuff, and someone else does that. And
It also
even have-
records fights very well. So if you have a fight via text with your husband, you
Yeah.
can go back and say, "No, you said this right here."
Yeah. But you can. It has this cool thing where you can like hook it up to different things. Like if you use Stripe or you use some other sort of like payment software, you can see when people are buying a product.
Yeah,
You
that's
can
really
see-
cool.
You can see when someone signs up for stuff. Like kind of.
So it'll
things
send
like
you a
that.
notification. Someone just bought
Yeah,
something.
it just sends it into the little chat window that like and we create a new channel for that can say like, hey, you have someone bought this or someone bought that, which is really cool. And we run 30-day healthy, and we run that live
Yes.
2 times a year. You can see all 100 people sign up over the course of a short period of time, and it's really kind of like cool to see that it's like
Yeah.
and that everything's working also, which is like another
Yeah.
reason how I use it is like if all of a sudden that window goes quiet for a day or two, then I know that like something broke somewhere, like, and I need to go look and
Which
figure it
happens a
out.
lot with breaking software.
Trust me.
Yeah.
There's a lot of bad apps that we can tell you about.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, do you have time for TV? And if so, what's your favorite show? Or do you watch them together? Poor kids.
We barely have time for TV, but we do make time to watch the Cowboys play on Sundays.
Okay.
And we watch the cartoon show Archer right before bed, just to kind of get the ridiculous
Something
dark
funny.
humor and comedy out, and that whole show right before we go to bed. That's how we decompress.
Yeah. Although lately we've been watching that new Star Trek show.
Yes, we have been watching that.
Yeah.
Is that on Netflix?
It's on CBS, like on CBS Online or whatever. Like you can only, it's their way of like trying to get everybody to buy their version of Netflix, I think.
Yes, I get you. So it's like a latest series or latest in the...
Yeah, it's a brand new one that they made, and they had like a free 14-day trial or whatever, and I watched the first episode and was like, oh, this is really good, and then I was like, I think you'd like it, and so then Lacey watched it, and then now we've been watching it.
Yeah, so it's a big deal.
Something
we
else
make
to
time
spend $10 a month on.
Yeah, but we've definitely been making the time to watch that one, and we did really enjoy watching Blacklist for a while as well. So we'll spend time watching a show, and maybe
we never make it all the way through though.
Yeah,
yes.
Usually like 2 or 3 seasons, and then, or not even 3. Usually like somewhere in the second season of anything, and we wind up finding business stuff that takes higher priority and moving on to that.
Yes. You're the second person though that's talked about Blacklist in the last week, so I think I'm gonna have to add it to my list then.
Yeah.
It's good. He's just, I forget the actor's name, but he's amazing.
Yeah. Cool. I'll have to check that out. But I'm with you. I mean, sometimes it is hard to follow through. Like you get so many things going on, and you want to read you want to, clean the kitchen or whatever. It's like sometimes hard to follow through on these series.
Yeah. Plan out my last minute buffer shares for the next day.
Yes. But that's kind of easy to do while you're watching TV, don't you think? Sometimes
when I am watching TV, I like to just veg. So it's like I charge my phone, and I just can't.
That's good.
He gets distracted by the TV too easily.
Yeah.
So like she can't multitask that
I'm
way.
not the best
Not with
at that.
TV.
Not with TV. The kids can be screaming, and I can have all this stuff going on in the kitchen, and I'm focused, but not with TV on.
You want to be all in. Yes.
Yeah.
Love it. Okay, so how can people find you online?
I'm going to let Dustin answer this, since I always answer too many.
The website's A Sweet Pea Chef, so sweetpeachef.com. And then Lacey's main channel of interaction is Instagram, which is just Lacey Baier.
Or you could also check out A Sweet Peach F, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
In other words.
Yeah.
I love it.
I wish we'd had a branding person teach us what not to do in the review.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you're way down the road from that now, right?
Yeah. Hindsight.
Well, Dustin and Lacey, I've had such a great time talking with you both, so thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks to Dustin and Lacey Baier for being my guests on today's episode of the Chopped Podcast. We took some notes for you so you don't have to, so you can just head over to chopped.academy/podcast to check out the show notes page. And while you're there, you can sign up for our newsletter so you'll be the first to learn about all the exciting things we have coming up, including Chopped Academy courses that are coming your way soon. Thank you for your support of the Chopped Podcast. Your reviews on iTunes and Stitcher make a big impact. If you haven't provided a review yet, please go to iTunes or Stitcher today. It takes only a few seconds of your time, and it means so much. You inspire me, and I hope today's show was helpful and inspirational to you as well. Now go forth and be your best you.